Ladies and gentlemen, what is up, and welcome today to a run through of the Web-Slinger challenge on Master Mode, an initial completion of the event. So that is essentially the first path and then the Vulture boss, who is by far the biggest pain in the ass. If you're kind of one of those players that's kind of shooting for a bit more progression, maybe this is your first event, this video is kind of made for the purpose of to show you that it's possible to do a 3-star champions, and even that, like, it's actually not even that bad with 3-star champions. We do not use a single revive in this video, and to add to that, to kind of make it a bit more realistic for maybe like a first player run, I'm not really trying anything too fancy in this run through, so I'm not like evading crazy specials like Spider-Man Special 1, and I'm not really going too ham on the intercepts, although I do intercept a bit. It's a bit of a natural reflex, but for the most part, I'm not doing anything super fancy when it comes to the combat, and also I'm not using boosts, so you know, if you want to use boosts, it's going to make it a little bit easier if it is your first time running through this. So the first opponent you have to fight is the classic version of Spider-Man. This dude is fairly easy to fight, especially like with Gwenpool. She's a really great option for this, because every hit that we're getting on the combo is reducing his chance to evade by 2%. So above 50 hits, you know, if we're taking this fight at a fairly slow pace and usually only attacking when he's stunned, occasionally going for that extra light lunge attack, then it's just going really well, and at this point his chance to evade is almost nothing, so it just becomes significantly easier. Get off the special 3 to have a bit more of a damage boost and simultaneously push him to his special 2, because that's one of the things you want to try and do as much as possible when it comes to fighting Spider-Man, is just get him to that special 2, because that one's much easier to deal with, as you can just quickly evade it and then kind of strike back in. And once we're at this magical 50 combo, then his chance to evade is now 0, so he just fights like any other enemy. The only thing you kind of need to be aware of course, is that special 1 ability. And in terms of, you know, which champion you take for this challenge, you're going to quickly see that 3-star Gwenpool, she is the MVP for the majority of it, but as we do get a little bit later in this challenge, you're also going to see some merits of some of the other characters that we've brought, mainly Punisher being an absolute god for this challenge with his deferred death ability. But next up we have probably the third most trickiest fight, or maybe the second most, depending on how well you handle the Stark Enhanced Spider-Man, which is the symbiote version of Spider-Man. So on this one, you kind of need to make an attempt to try and fully evade the special 1, and you're going to see that a little bit later in the video, but where possible, try and push him to his special 2. So I think we made a little bit of a mistake there. We shouldn't have really gone in so hard while he has his evade buff up, because that is a really high chance to evade, even with already kind of a 20 combo behind us, and we didn't get too lucky in the bleed, so we didn't refresh the innovate there, and that's kind of the secret to kind of easily beating this fight with Gwenpool, is you need to get that innovate up and then just keep on laying into him, and you're going to see we're eventually going to get it up in a minute, but we need to build up to that a little bit more before we get quite lucky, get the stun there. I just go in, I pop the special 2, that gets him to his special 2, so we don't need to worry about an SP1 anymore. We've just got one more SP2 to deal with, but we also need to worry about playing aggressively and keeping the bleed up. Played a little bit risky there attacking him, but it was the only way that I was going to refresh the innovate, so I'm pretty glad I did. You know, sometimes you have to make these gambles, and especially one of the things you need to consider constantly with Gwenpool is as your combo meter is going up, that chance to evade, you know, is being continually reduced, so sometimes it makes sense to gamble when you're on, you know, like a 30-40 combo. There's a very minimal chance that they're going to evade there. So yeah, as for now on, it's just a case of kind of like parrying and just kind of getting your ins via like heavy attacks, parries, just the chain on stun. You can see we're playing a little bit risky, just attacking into him, but it's all about just playing very aggressive to keep up that innovate. The reason I held off on that special 3 for a little bit was just I was making sure that I had the bleeds to keep up innovate, and I knew that, you know, I didn't want to introduce the armor break too early into the mix to potentially like consume a bleed that would have consumed innovate. So yeah, apart from that, not a bad fight at all. And the next fight is probably the easiest fight of the challenge. You got Spider-Gwen to deal with, And there's not really too much to worry about here. It's mainly like her special one, and if she gets the evade buff from that, you need to play it a little bit slower. But apart from that, it's try to push her to a special 2 as much as possible. Spider-Gwen doesn't have any passive evade, so it's just a case of like nuking this champion down and absolutely millering her. So I do make a bit of a mistake there. I just missed a parry or something. But one of the great things about this challenge, obviously, is the life transfer buff, which means that whenever we're dealing damage, we're being healed for 125% of that damage dealt. So that's also a reason why Gwenpool is an insane champion to bring, just because she deals so much damage, so you heal for an absolute crap load. It's very, very awesome. But yeah, just continuing to kind of hammer in on Spider-Gwen, use the special hit 3 here to help connect to Spider-Gwen's special 2, which we're going to bait after this, and also give a huge damage increase on this fight. You could potentially, you know, if you're having a lot of trouble with the special 1, maybe use the special 2 on Gwenpool and elevate Spider-Gwen and just keep her power locked in the corner. But, you know, if you want to finish the fight a little bit quicker, you can probably go for this tactic where you get the special 3. But again, it doesn't really matter too much in this matchup. You know, there are various different ways that you can play it. So yeah, we're just going ham on Spider-Gwen now. Got a nice amount of bleeds, the armor break, and we need to bait a special 2. And then pretty much the fight is almost over from then on out. So we're going in for a full combo. I go for a special 2, hoping to get quite a big crit here and finish the fight. But it didn't quite do it, but a couple of blocked hits, you know, finishes off Spider-Gwen quite nicely there. Celebratory backflip, and we move on to Miles Morales, who I think Miles Morales, he's still one of the easier fights in this challenge, to be honest. I often think of Miles Morales as a slightly easier Spider-Man to fight, especially on this challenge when he does get the evade. Like, even if you do get hit by it, it isn't of huge consequence, because like, especially on the first lane, even with a 3-star character, you have generally, unless they land like a 5 combo and get really, really lucky with the crits, you kind of have enough buffer room to then like parry and then get a combo in and kind of heal back up and start recovering the fight. But Miles Morales, kind of the secret strategy here, which I guess isn't really that secret, is you just want to push into his special 2 as much as possible, because that is much, much easier to deal with than the SP1. However, I did get some god tier RNG. Like, the RNG on this fight was completely ridiculous. Just getting like 11 stacks of bleed there. It was so incredibly absurd. That was allowing me to chain on the stun. So yeah, we got a little bit lucky there. So just going in for the next round of combo. I probably should have used my special 3, just in hindsight after that round. But, you know, it's working quite well what we're doing here as well. But yeah, just in hindsight, I guess for maximum damage, like that would have been a little bit better. But it's still going very well. It's still going very fine. We got the fight under control for the most part, and yeah, just trying to bait a heavy attack here, get off a final SB2. I think we going for the bait on that, or do we just finish the fight off there? Okay, so we bait that final SB2, then it's just another round of combo again, because we're above 50 combo hits now, 0% chance to evade, and we move on to probably the second most challenging boss if you're doing this for 3 stars, which is the Stark Enhanced version of Spider-Man. So for this fight, again, kind of Gwenpool to kind of keep the evades locked down and also deal a crazy amount of damage on this one. So initially we start off the fight, we're trying to bait out heavy attacks, not really going for too much fancy intercepting here as we said at the beginning. So yeah, just waiting for that heavy attack. It took a while to come through, we lost about 50% life there, but it puts us now on a good track to kind of get into a nice rhythm of continually kind of evading that SP1. So we're just going in, and we're getting quite lucky with the initial like 3% evade. We haven't had that proc yet, but it's going to be one of the things that you'll notice maybe a little bit later in the fight. Even above like a 50 combo hit, Spider-Man still gets some evades, which is really, really odd. I'm not too sure if this character's like evade is broken in that regard. But yeah, it doesn't happen on any other character apart from the Stark Enhanced version. Now here is actually where I make a little bit of a mistake. He's at his special 1, I fire off my SP3, which kind of ruins the flow of combat because now he's at his special 2, which I'm not fully comfortable on fully evading yet. So yeah, we've taken about like half life, and I don't believe there's ample opportunity to kind of intercept after that special 2. So I get off a little bit of a cheeky intercept there just to kind of keep the fight flowing and get us back to that rhythm of kind of avoiding the special one, and then kind of just going ham and just kind of rinse and repeat. So yeah, ain't too bad, but ideally with Gwenpool, I think it's a good idea if you save your special free just for an opportunity where maybe you're kind of a little bit lacking on power and you don't have enough with your next combo to push into the special one. If you fire that off, that'll get into the special one and you can get back into the flow of the fight. But yeah, I didn't really demonstrate that too well here, but we still managed to make a decent recovery, so it's not too bad at all. But as you can see, you got the evade there, we're on 63 hits. That shouldn't happen. So I'm assuming this character's evade is a little bit bugged or something. It just seems very odd. I think it happened a couple more times throughout the course of this fight. Really unexpected, but it was those evades that are on like a light attack, so you've plenty of time to recover. So yeah, it didn't end up being too bad. I think you're gonna see another one in a second. But is there any evades? But yeah, it's still substantially less. Okay, there wasn't another one. But yeah, it was still a little bit weird that he procced a couple of evades, you know, kind of above 50 combo, like a little bit like what's going on there. But anyway, we move on now to probably the hardest part for like any beginner trying to get a completion run, which is the unstunnable Vulture, just because in comparison to the first path, this dude is so beefed up. He has 30,000 PI if you're fighting him without the link node, and also about 5,000 attack. So a lot of health, a lot of damage there. You don't really have much buffer room for blocking, so if he does do a 5 combo or you'll get unlucky, then yeah, it's a bit of a pain in the ass. But you just want to try and bait out those heavy attacks, and that's kind of getting into a rhythm of continually baiting the special one. But I did have quite a few timings fails on the special 2 attacks. That is mainly like all of my deaths to Vulture. But you're going to see here, Punisher is an MVP for this challenge. I think it's on the very first one that I fail. So I fight him like Archangel and go in after he's done his initial whirl. But when he goes to strike that killing blow, the endurance, it actually saves me from dying and prevents the regeneration damage so that we can like pretty much fully heal up on Punisher and recover the fight. So yeah, when it comes to Vulture, if you want a good champion that like has 2 lives, Punisher is a great option as a free-star. Like, he's really good. Definitely really rate this character for this challenge. Like, I think he's gonna be one of the MVPs for a lot of people. You know, if you got the 4-star Awakened, you're probably one of the luckiest dudes in Marvel Contest of Champions. But even if you don't, you can see here that the 3-star Punisher is a pretty viable and working option. But like, one of the things that just catches me off of Vulture is just the special 2 timing, because it's like Archangels, but it's got that puff at the end. So usually I'm used to like fighting Archangel and then going in like before that path. So that's where I make quite a few mistakes on this one. But aside from that, it's just really kind of like baiting and outraging Vulture's special attacks. The special 1 is quite easy to avoid, and the special 2, you just need to, you know, make sure you dash back twice and wait for that puff. It's all you're kind of after there. Then kind of get the in there, and yeah, just make sure you control your specials. Be aware that Vulture has double power gain. That's one of the things that you need to constantly keep in mind, because, you know, if you use a special 2 when he's on like 1 and a bit power, then you run the risk of getting Vulture to a special 3, which is really not the zone that you want to be in, because, you know, you're just gonna get wrecked and you're gonna die pretty quickly there. So yeah, just going a little bit ham. I should have done one more hit there just to push him to the special 2, evade the glider with the SP1. The special 1, I think, is a little bit easier to fully evade, just because it's so easy. But in terms of like keeping up a good tempo on this fight, you probably want to try and get used to the special 2. But that's where I failed again there. Oh, mistakes were made, guys. I'm by no means a perfect player, so I'm happy to share these glorious mistakes with you. And the reason for doing these champions in a certain order, like Punisher, Angela, and then we move on to kind of like Star-Lord and Gwenpool, is basically the reason I wanted to build up from like my worst champions to my best ones, because I knew like Vulture was going to be a really tough boss in terms of the amount of health that he has. And also dealing with baiting with all those special attacks when you're stringing on combos of like 100 and a bit. You know, it can be getting a little bit fatiguing, and you can make those long mistakes. And as you can see, those little mistakes, they do cost you the fight occasionally. But here we're using Angela. Angela is a pretty good option as a Vulture killer. You know, she doesn't rely on stunning the champion in a way that maybe Hyperion and forward. So I quite enjoy using her for this fight. Like, Hyperion, to be honest, would probably have about a similar output as Angela, but hey, Angela, she needs a little bit more occasional love, just as a hard-hitting champion. So yeah, I'm definitely not playing Angela as well perfectly here. We're playing alright, but we could have got the rotation down a little bit more, keeping in kind of that special 1 to special 2 zone. Yeah, just outranging the glider. You'll see me like evading back quite a bit when the glider's coming at me, but really there's no real reason to do that. As you can see, like, dexterity's not triggering, I'm not in range of it. So yeah, like, it isn't a huge problem there for the most part. He's just being very, very aggressive on using his special 1, which is awesome. We get into the special 2 now. Just wait for those jets to path, and boom. So yeah, having some quite nice runs here so far with Angela and Punisher OG. Like, they're doing an exceptional job. But in terms of, like, the length of this fight, again, Vulture has about 3 times the amount of health that any of the champions do on the first plus he is unstunnable, plus he has double power gain. So it's one of those fights, if you're doing it for the first time, it's very much an endurance test, you know. It's just the ability to survive, just continually bait those specials. But once you get into the flow of it and you get a good rhythm, like, it's not too hard. So I think, you know, it's very possible to do, you know, if you're taking your time, if you're playing patiently with quite a few 3-star champions. So there, I had a bit of an input mess up. Like, initially, for some reason, it parried instead of dashing back. Then I tried to dash back, but then I got clipped by the wing, and then I just got completely wrecked. So the next matchup or fight is by far the worst one. This one is, like, legit embarrassing. So Vulture, he dashes back at the start and then comes at me, so he gets the charge of, like, the next attack misses, and then I just get incinerated, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm dying so quickly. So try to go in for an intercept, and I get hit. So yeah, I should have taken that a lot slower. That was entirely my bad. But also, I guess, like, some fairly bad RNG at the start with just him dashing back and getting that initial stack of miss. But you just got to be a little bit careful of that. But yeah, we also have it on this fight as well with Gwenpool, so now I'm a little bit more wary that my first attack's going to miss, but we going for like a second rapid-fire one, just because I saw that in the first one he didn't really recover that fast. But this fight, you know, it was a little bit sketchy to start off, to say the least, for sure, you know. I don't have much health here at all, so yeah, we're just trying to kind of get the ins and bait the special attacks while trying to you know, counter the degeneration, just evade that. We're getting a little bit more in the zone now when it comes to evading the special attacks. Just the occasional slip-ups that are just wrecking us. I actually don't believe I failed at the Vulture's SB2. I think that was all on the initial attempt to Punisher. And for some reason, it was really odd on this track, because Vulture's, like, power gain seems to be bugged at, like, 0 stacks. So yeah, that was an odd one. Usually he stays pretty consistently at 100, but yeah, not really to worry, I guess. So we got backed a little bit into a corner just due to the rough start here. So there are actually, like, dashbacks where I do have to evade the glider, so it's a good habit, you know, if you do get kind of backed into the left-hand side of the map, that I would suggest, you know, on any glider when it's swinging at you, just get that evade before you kind of dash in, just to make sure, because the range on it, it's a little bit hard to tell sometimes. It's a little bit hard to tell. But again, kind of if you're in the middle or to the far right side, just simply being to the leftmost screen possible is really going to help evade that. So yeah, just let's try to get another special 2 evade off for sure. And what is it? The timer on him at the moment is actually the Gwenpool's armor break, getting rid of his armor up, but he gets it back. So that isn't a huge problem. That was essentially just triggered by the SP3. So yeah, not too much to worry about there. And, oh, I think actually when it refreshed, it broke his armor again in terms of, like, removing the initial armor passive he has. So yeah, a bit of an interesting one on Gwenpool. I think Gwenpool, like, as much as I'm, like, sucking her dick right now, she's, like, the greatest champion for this challenge. She's so insanely good for, like, every single fight. So yeah, I mean, if you don't have Gwenpool, very conveniently, a 4-star version is going to be available in this weekend's arena, but I imagine the cutoff is going to be fairly ridiculous. But if not, you know, if you're just going for that initial completion, you got the 3-star Gwenpool, you managed to get her awakened, she's going to be a great option if you're just looking to lunge for the completion of this event and not for the full exploration. But to be honest, I guess like if you were to play like super well, if you can evade Spider-Man's Special 1 consistently, then I think there is an absolutely great chance that you can nail this entire challenge, like the full exploration with it, with a 3-star version of Gwenpool. I think she has the potential for that, but obviously you're going to have to play like so well for some fights that are, especially when you get to some of the final lanes, quite long. You know, they're going to be about like 200, 300 hits. So yeah, a bit of an interesting one there. But I failed so badly on that last little bit. We just took a 4 combo to the face. So it's just one of those things where you go through really long fights, you have that margin for error. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, we have our saving grace. We got the boy Star-Lord, who actually, I think, out of all of the 3-star champions for this, Star-Lord is actually probably the best option if you can get into a good rhythm and play perfectly, just because it's such a good fight for kind of like ramp up damage. And once you get like above 50 hit combo, like you're going to be healing so much. You just don't need to worry about the degeneration at all. Vulture doesn't have any mechanics like evade. So yeah, Star-Lord, he's probably one of the MVPs for fighting Vulture as well. You know, providing if you can get into a good rhythm. But I imagine for a lot of people, that's some fairly obvious stuff. That's also why we left it to last. But there we go. A very nice kill with the special too. So ladies and gentlemen, there it is. The Web-Slinger Challenge Master Mode Chapter 4. Completion done with 3-star champions. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Maybe it inspired you to like get out and get it done. I do highly suggest that for the initial rewards. Apart from that, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed. Take care and have an absolutely fantastic day.